Quad66, welcome to the couch. I am bringing a new low to the FPV YouTube space, a new low in production value, a new low in budget. I literally have little headlamps pointing at me to get you enough light so you can actually see my face. We're crooked because the laptop is sitting on my couch, but you don't care about that because you're not here for LeDrib video, you're not here for vlogging, you're not here for the high value, this is my job, Joshua Bardwell stuff. You're not here for Chris Rosser's fancy FEA analysis and patented frame technology. You're not here for even Bob Ruge's horrible wire management and janky soldering and just butchery of like radios and stuff like that. You're not here for Mark Spatz and his like green screening, you know, that cheap green, like it's not even green screening. He's just using whatever, and so you get that like edgy stuff. You're here because I do stuff like this. I go out and buy 2 sets of batteries. These are We Bleed FPV. These are folded cell 300s. And what I did is I bought the PH2 set and a BT2 set. I think the light is washing it out a little bit. So BT2, PH2. And PH2 has been the standard forever. They were horrible when they were folded cell. Folded pin. They got better when we figured out to do solid pins, and probably better yet when people like CNCdrones go ahead and gold plate them. But it's a legitimate question of, is it worth spending the money and tacking on a little extra weight to get the BT2? It's, you know, having used this connector a little bit, it's definitely a nicer connector. It just is. But the only real good data I saw between what I know are solid pin PH2 and BT2 is from Mute FPV. And the thing though is like his results just weren't different enough for me to say, yeah, absolutely, that's worth the money and the weight trade-off. Plus we had GNB27 at that point in time. Hopefully that's not an issue anymore. So I think it's safe if you want to do BT2. I think it's safe that between BT2 and A30, I think it's 830, that you're kind of safe jumping over and making a jump to it. But that was the only data I saw that's legitimately kind of comparing the two connectors, and it was only one connector, so there's a variability there. And it's also not like putting a quad up in the air because we don't fly how a lot of these tests are done. And so I want to show you what does this actually look like when I fly a quad. And specifically I ran a poll on the community. So if you haven't seen this, about 50-ish people voted, and I asked, what's meaningful? Is it a 1% difference? Is it a 2% difference? Is it a 5% difference? Is it a 10 or is it 20% difference? Because I wanted for people to kind of put down, this is what I think is a meaningful difference before they see the results, because once you see the results, I think you're going to start rationalizing, oh, well, this is what I do, and these results fit into my narrative because of X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. But I wanted to kind of put some people on the line to say, this is what I think a meaningful difference is, and then I'm going to show you what the difference is. And then you're going to have to come back and then say, okay, well, I guess based on that, yeah, I do think it's a difference. Or, no, I don't think it's a difference. So on that, what I saw was about like 50 to 60% of the people were saying, what they want to see is a 10% difference between the BT2 and the PH2. And we're going to look at a couple things. We're going to look at flight time, just total flight time. And then we're also going to look at what is our voltage when we're hovering. So I'm going to fly for 2 minutes, do kind of a typical loop for me. This is even a little less technical, more on throttle for me. And the build here is going to be this 65mm whoop. It is on a Flywoo board. It's an MPU 6000 board. And it's an all-in-one, 4-in-1 with the external receiver. And the motors I put on, so I had the Happy Model motors on here, but they were about done. So I switched these out and I went with the Beta FPV 07 and 02. These are, if you can see these are the blue motors, blue and silver. Those are the bushing motors, which are smoother than the bearing. I don't think there's a point to the bearing motors, at least the set I had. But there may be a point to these. And spoiler alert though, efficiency on these little suckers, not good, even worse than the CNCdrones bearing motors. But I thought that was good for this test because we want to push the cells a little bit. And so what I did is on this quad, I wired up this pigtail where both the BT2 and PH2 are getting wired to the same wire with both having good contact. With like it's wire metal to wire to the metal in the wire to the metal in the connector is physically touching and soldered across, and a similar kind of cross section between the two connectors. Because I think one of the things people don't realize is solder is not very conductive. So when you're soldering stuff together, you're not just trying to make this pretty blob of solder, this molten thing that looks shiny and pretty, and then the wire's nice in it. What you want to do is you want to get that wire onto the pad, or you want the wire onto the connector, and then the solder is just holding it in place and flowing in and filling the gaps. Bridging, you want tiny little gaps that the solder is bridging. But anyways, that is already way too much talking. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the quad. And so what we're going to do is we're going to idle for 5 seconds, fly for 2 minutes and hover, check the voltage. Then we're going to finish it out, and I'm going to land as soon as this sucker starts saying low battery at flat, like when I'm at, not if I'm like punching out, but at flat, because these batteries are fresh folded cell and they go off the cliff. Like if you push them too far, they go fast and you don't want to ruin your cells. All right, so let's get some things going here. Let's see, we're going to start with, let's start with PH2. Get this plugged in. Trying to remember which is the best way to get these plugged in. Oh, before we do that, check this out. Look at that. No connect. Yeah, that's a newbie. That's a hummingbird. That's a V3. No connectors or anything on it. Kelvin was nice enough to send me a race edition. Hopefully I don't kill this one, because I'm really curious to see what this can be built up with. This is going to be a light build. And I really, really hope I don't kill it, because that's going to be fun. Oh, another thing I have is some bleeders. Got those. Anyways, I'm sure you're annoyed already with how long I've been talking without showing you any results. Again, you're not here for the vlog. You're just here for information. Who's that guy? There's a guy, somebody does these really good tutorials but talks forever. And the tutorial is good, the information is there, but it's like 3 times longer than it needs to be. Did I have that stupid box up that whole time? I hope not. That looks silly. Oh well, I apologize for that. I apologize for that. I hope that box wasn't there. But if it was, is what it is. I'm not going to redo this. Let's go and, yep, got video. Let's turn off video here. You can still hear me? Yep. All right, still got good sound. All right. Let's see what we got here. Sorry about the house. It is a mess. I know you don't care, but I care. All right. Gonna idle for 5 seconds. And then let's go. Man, first battery. I should have flown a warm-up pack. This first battery is always a little shaky. So these Beta FPV motors, 0702, these are the bushings. They're smooth enough, but I'll do a video with the same batteries that I did the CNCdrone and the Happy Model motors to give you a better comparison. But they're just not efficient. So other than building up a novelty quad in terms of just super lightweight, I don't think these motors are really like filling much of a niche or need or anything. All right, what do we got? We're at a minute. So this circuit I'm flying here, it's intentionally kind of open. I'm trying not to be technical so I don't crash. So that way I can kind of stay flying, stay on the throttle. And I'm not trying to push it. Not trying to get fancy, just trying to get in some good, consistent power output. So one of the things we have to think about, when we have batteries, what we want to know is watts. Watts is power, so your power unit for power is watts. That's what you really want to know. But with batteries, what we get is voltage and current and amps. And watts is a function of not just the voltage, but also the amps. So you can draw a whole bunch of amps, but if your watts are really low, your powers, and I'm watching this time here. Okay, so we're at 2 minutes. Let's hover. So 3.51, 3.50, 2 minutes. And then let's see where we get before we run into that low battery warning. Shoot, I'm getting a little goggle fog. These are my old analog Fat Sharks that have no fans, no working fan, I should say. And so I am flying through half-blind fog. Hopefully I don't crash. That'd be a bummer for the test. So 230, 240. Battery's getting pretty low. So watts, yeah. You know, you can be pulling a ton of amps, but if that sags the battery to very low voltage, your watts are going to be terrible. All right, let's come in, let's land that, and see where it settles out. Okay, 258, and we're rebounding to 3.56. So not a bad rebound. So we're 3 minutes, 3.57. So it's decent rebound. And our hover at 2 minutes was 2.5 or 3.51, I believe. Okay. So that was a PH2 connector. Let's just double check that. Yes, that was a PH2. Now let's go to a BT2 connector. See which way this goes in. All right. All right, so now if we're thinking about 10%, what does 10% mean? Well, if the PH2 was hovering at 3.51, 10% of that is going to be 0.35, right? 0.35. So for voltage, what we want to see, let's pop up here. For voltage, what we want to see at that hover point for BT2 to be 10% better is we want to see 3.51 plus 0.35. So we want to see 3.85 for it to be a 10% difference. So that's what we're looking for at that 2 minute mark. And then if we're flying for 3 minutes, man, math is hard when you're flying. If we're flying for 3 minutes, that is 180 seconds. And so a 10% difference on 180 seconds is going to be 18 seconds, correct? I think that should be about right. So what we're looking for is to hit like 315, 317, or 316 or 318, because I think it was like 258, and rebounding to 3.56, 3.57. Obviously the landing and time, at the end there, you can really stretch things out by kind of getting off the throttle a little bit and kind of pushing a little bit. So that flight time is a little bit harder, I think, to kind of be consistent. The other one I want you to watch for me, I forgot to mention this on the previous cell, is what happens when I'm popping over that. I am paying attention to where I'm flying, so I have a hard time watching the voltage as I do that little pop. So if you're watching this, go ahead and put some notes in the comments of what are you seeing when we pop up over here, and then when we catch the downs, stuff like that. What's the voltage doing there? And we want to compare between the cells and see if we can see a difference there. Ooh, kind of scared myself. Okay, 2 minutes. So 3.54. So we're seeing a 0.03 difference. 0.03 difference in a BT2. So the BT2, it's at least making up its weight, and it's giving you a little benefit. So making up its weight plus a little benefit, but a small benefit, 0.03, that's like, that's not 10%, spoiler alert, that is a 1%. Yeah, I'm doing the math right? Yeah, so on the voltage, we're looking at a 1% difference. So now we're going to look at flight time. All right, so where are we at? 252. Still hanging on in there. Oh, did it go? Oh, there it goes. Okay, so let's bring that down. So 306, but I pushed it further. Look at that, 3.49, so take off a couple seconds there. I'm gonna pull that so it doesn't kill my battery. All right. So let's get another battery going here. We're gonna go back to PH2. So what we saw there was at our 2-minute hover point, we were seeing a 0.03, a 1% difference for BT2. So a benefit, but certainly not a 10%. It's a 1% as far as voltage at hover. I think that's going to be better the more power you're pulling. And then we did get more flight time by, what was that, 8 seconds or so? So a difference on flight time of 8 seconds, which we were looking for 18 to be, so maybe that's like a 5% flight time, but I pushed it further. My voltage didn't recover as far. So I don't know, you know, are you going to call that like maybe like a 3% difference, 2% difference in flight time? All right, so PH2 again. So we're going to hover or idle for 5 seconds. And pop that up. All right, so I got 2 flights in. I feel a little better about not crashing those. I showed you what I wanted to show you, so we can feel a little more relaxed and not as worried if I crash. So I've done this a couple times, but not a lot. So these batteries are still really fresh. And you can see on really fresh 300s, these Beta FPV motors are barely going 3 minutes. And really what we want to see is something more in the 3 minute 30, 3 minute 40 second range on efficiency. Now, you know, we got to compare a punch and things like that, but these don't feel like dramatically more powerful. So, you know, and the weight wise, I don't know, I'd have to really get them back to back on the same quad. But I don't know if I feel a dramatic weight benefit to these motors. So as far as ranking motors right now, I think I want to try these new Weebleed FPVs, so I have some freshies with the happy models. But I think what I'm looking at is probably your best all-around motor, presuming that the KV isn't totally different, throwing the results off. I think your best all-around motor is probably that happy model, with the caveat that you're dealing with bushings. And a close second in terms of, because it's got the niche of bearings, is going to be the CNCdrone motor, with the understanding that you're going to give up a little flight time with those, but you're doing that to get the really smooth motors, and presumably you're going to get longer life out of them too, because they're bearings, and they seem smooth enough that they're legit bearings and not just bearing garbage that's going to fall apart on you. All right, 2 minutes, PH2, 3.51, 3.52. Okay. Let's see where we get flight time. So PH2 motor, or a PH2 connector. Nice consistent result from pack to pack. I like to see that we're not getting variability from the Weebleed packs. My understanding is that the folded cell are all the same manufacturer, and I think it'll be really interesting to see if we can determine if those new Beta FPV folded cells are the same manufacturer, or if we have a true new player in that space, because that would be kind of nice to have some competition there. Saw a little bit of a battery warning. All right, I'm going to call that. I think it's a real low battery warning. So 302, decent rebound here. We're going to 3.56. So 302, 3.57. So we could have pushed another couple seconds there. So 302 bouncing back to 3.57. Okay. So I think one of the things you are seeing there, which is kind of interesting to me, is that there is enough sag at the end that the PH or the BT2 connector, it is bringing you in. It's holding that sag off just long enough to where you're really going to get to the end of the battery, versus the PH2 is going to, if you're trying to spin it in a positive way, that PH2 is giving you a little bit more warning to where you're not going to come in and destroy your battery. Or that's these silly little blocks still on the screen. Sorry, sorry about that. Had those little lines. All I had to do is click to make those go away. All right, what did I say? What are we on? We're on back to a BT2 connector. Okay. So BT2 connector, flight 2 from kind of that more racy style, less vertical, more horizontal flying. Pop it up to the 5-second mark. Let me try and give you another pack. So we got a nice consistent result from the PH2 cells. Hover, 2 minutes hover was 3.51, 3.52. The last BT2 cell, I think we were 3.53 or 3.54. So we did see a little bit of benefit there, but only, that's realistically like a 1% benefit, if that, in voltage on the hover at 2 minutes. And then flight time, honestly, I don't know if you can call that a flight time benefit on the BT2, because we pulled that battery off at 3.49 versus the PH2 cells. We were pulling them off at, they were rebounding 3.55, 3.56, 3.57. So maybe you can give advantage flight time by a couple of seconds. Again, like a 1, maybe 2% advantage to the BT2. So on a lightweight 0702, granted not an efficient 0702, so an 0702 that you're pulling through 300, the 300 milliamps in 3 minutes, that's really looking like it's not enough to generate a dramatic difference. What most people were saying is 10 seconds, 10% difference. That's not, we're not seeing that kind of difference between these two connectors. What I think is kind of interesting is this was a similar story that I found when people were all flipping out about going XT30 on the 3-inch quads, where everybody's like, oh my gosh, everything is so much better. All right, so 3.53, 3.54. Ooh, even let's call it 3.54. So, yeah, 0.02, 0.03 voltage. That's what we're getting on the hover. That's realistically, I think you'd have a hard time saying that's more than a 2% difference. And these are standard solid pins. These aren't gold plated. This is not the NubiDrone gold pin. So there may be an even smaller margin of difference there. Now, caveat, these are all new. Connector is new. Batteries are new. The BT2 has a nice plating on it. The PH2 does not. And somebody, I forget the name, I wish I had noted it down, but somebody had mentioned they live near the water and corrosion is a big issue. All right, are we flashing low here? Okay, let's bring that in. That's flashing low, so PH2 right at 3 minutes. All right, so I pushed this one a little deeper. So 3 minutes, 3.49. Let's go ahead and pull that off. Oh, that was the BT2. So that only went 3 minutes on a BT2. So flight time, I don't know if you can call that any different. That was a BT2. That only went 3 minutes, and that was 3.49. You know, maybe I'm pushing a little harder, something like that, but definitely no big flight time difference. All right, got 2 more batteries. We're going to go back to the PH2. Now, this is going to be harder to get the whole flight to be a fair comparison. But the other thing I want to show you is what happens, and this might not work, I might destroy the quad. What happens if we're going to fly a little bit more Ciati style, huck the thing around, test the punch here a little bit. And I don't do much of this inside, so this might go horribly wrong. So this is the PH2 connector. So what I want you to focus on is, what does this do when we go ahead and hit these punches and catch it, right? Oh, 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 oh. Bring it back. All right. Yeah, so, you know, what are we seeing when we do that stuff? So I can't, oh, yeah, I might be stuck there. Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm stuck. Hang on, let me get that. My goggle was screaming at me for a second there. Hopefully my batteries aren't dying there. All right. What did I do to my quad? Oh no, I lost a prop. Oh, this is a disaster. Holy cow. Okay, so that went horribly wrong at the end there. I lost the prop, and I don't have one right near me. So what I'll do is I'll bring this back for a follow-up video. We're going to do some freestyle. I'm going to huck it around, and then so now we're going to push it. What happens at just the top end punch outs and things like that? Is the BT2 going to allow enough amps and voltage there to where you're going to see the advantage when you're just really pushing the cells harder? Because obviously the style of flight I was showing you is a particular kind of smoother, less up and down. So they're going to be a little bit less, it's going to be more consistent on the battery, less of the peaky, you know, amp draws. And that might be a difference. The other one, I kind of started talking about this, is the difference in the coating. And this lighting is not going to let me show you, but because it's going to wash out there. But the BT2 is has a nice coating on the pins versus PH2 doesn't. So if you're living in very humid areas, which I don't, I live in Arizona, it's really dry air here, so that might be helping me with my experience with PH2, which is, it's not that bad. And if it does seem like the connector's going off a little bit, I just put a little drop of deoxit on there to kind of clean it out. But if you're living near water, and I know how that is, I've lived in Florida in the past, then your PH2 connectors might not last nearly as long as mine do. So that's another factor to consider. But I think for now, I'm gonna just kind of chill here and relax. I'm gonna grab another prop for myself. Maybe I'll film the part 2 of this right now and put it out at a later time or something like that. But yeah, when I test it, I don't see a big difference. That's my conclusion. We're gonna push it a little bit harder, but on these whoops, for me, flying inside, I'm not seeing a difference that you need to change your connector. If you're happy with the PH2, I think you're fine to keep going with it. Flip side is the weight penalty of this BT2. It's not enough to negate the benefit. I think the BT2, you do get a little voltage benefit out of it. as you saw, the flight time is a little bit questionable whether there's any real benefit there. All right. Till next time, cheers.